West. Woo! More. I can't wait, man, for tomorrow.
They're so adorable. You guys are great. Love you guys. Man, yeah, I mean, Sundown called it out. A little bit of a choke there. I'm not sure. I'm trying to understand why the initial bouncer came out. And it was like a weird, like, what are the chances of your teammate coming down on the same layer, happening to hit the same bouncer, just kind of causing a bunch of chaos? It is what it is, but hey, Reese, you called it out. Your boys with the most easy, recognizable names, they got themselves a victory royale.
They did. Michael keeping his name as Michael, not looking like to change it after Monster D-Face gives him a little bit of smoke on Twitter. But they're currently in 9th. Flick and Thomas HD really popped off that game. 14 eliminations in second. Obviously, they're still way ahead. I think Flick was having some internet issues, and that may be why you saw him fall down from high ground and knock himself. And then, that bouncer play where they both just flew into zone as Anas and Thomas HD. Sometimes, you know what? You make a mistake, and it just happens. You know what? Even the best, sometimes you just make a mistake.
Yeah, we're looking at the top 8 right now. Mistakes or big plays, regardless. We have an entire days of games to kind of break down after this and during this final segment. But Legend, Cartoon, and Forex, I think it was game 3 or 4, they really kind of solidified their spot. They had one very good game. They rode that wave, and right now they're locked in after day 1 in that top 8. Past that, you have to remember top 16 is what a lot of people want to hit to be eligible for that wild card match. But these guys are still fighting for that top 8. We have a whole other day of games to go. On this page, Reese, any standouts for you?
We talked about Lolboom, Nico, and Snowda earlier. They picked up a really nice game in game 2 with 8 eliminations, 4th. But, in all honesty, I'd said at that point they were going to struggle in the early game because they'd been eliminated off spawn 2 other games. And that kind of seems to be what they've been doing. The last 2, they've kind of got a little bit of points into the placement 10th and an 8th, but haven't really managed to make stuff up out of that. So clearly the early and mid game really needs some work.
Yeah, and today overall for Europe Heat 1, day number 1, we've kind of just seen height versus low go down every single game. Mid-ground really just gets pinched out completely. Will that theme continue in day number 2? And will Flick, Anas, and Thomas really just hold down the top spot too? Because right now they're almost 40 points ahead.
It's a very, very strong lead heading into tomorrow's games. But again, tomorrow is a different day, and it may not be their day. Or hey, as we've seen in the past, it might be their day tomorrow. We'll see. Now, really quickly, let's touch on the predictions that we made at the very beginning of EU. Let's remind everyone, Reese, kick us off.
My team, Mongrel, Metro, Tayson, be performing very, very well. They're currently in 3rd, only 3 points behind Vel, iDrop, and Stratix. But in all honesty, those 2 teams who are in the first 2 places have been doing very, very well as well. So, I'm not surprised to see them not claim that first, second slot. I'm hoping for the next 6 games tomorrow, they're going to pick up a couple more victory rounds and be a little bit more consistent and just kind of start climbing that into the first place slot.
Benji Savage Lecce, a little bit rocky coming in for the first few games, but they really brought it back, I think, in game 3 or 4 and really went towards that top 5. Now they have a solidified spot in that top 10, but I hope they hold onto it. Sundown, though, is gassed up with Flick, Anas, and Thomas HD all the way in first place, playing so phenomenally in this heat.
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't know what these guys are doing because Sancho's got the second place team right now, right? We got Vettel, iDrop, and Stursix. So a lot of these trios are playing extremely well. But what's going to matter is tomorrow, those last 6 games. Can they bring it all back tomorrow? Because remember, they're going to have a day's break. They're going to be able to come back. And it's not even just them. We're talking about every other trio in the lobby, right? They're going to be able to reset their mentals, take a look at what went right, what went wrong, and adjust that. Because tomorrow with 6 games, literally anything can happen. We've seen it time and time again. We count a team out, or maybe a team is like, look, you shouldn't have forgotten about us, and they show us why. Now, before we do say goodbye to all things EU for the day, really quickly, let's touch on the other heats. Remember, it's heats 2, 3, and 4 that are going on at the same time, and I think one more game after this. Over in heat 2, we've got Floki, Clements, and Nikos. They're the only trio to break the triple-digit number.
Yep, and in Heat 2, there is also a point gap in first to second place. So these guys have a little bit of padding coming in for game number 1 tomorrow. And I would only assume that they play phenomenally to hold this spot with that Victory Royale and consistently overall with 49 eliminations.
And we saw Kinzel, CRR, and Wolfies in 5th place there, performing very well as well. They only managed to make one round 3, which was in qualifier 3, and they performed very well there too. So clearly, these guys are performing when it matters in these custom style lobbies.
On that last space there too was a huge tie in between all the trios. It was like a 1-point game, so that heat is very close. In Heat 3 though, Janice, Andalex, and X-Squeeze are up top with 115. The gap though isn't that far.
It's close, but I'm not surprised at all to see these guys on top. They took away with a victory qualifier 3, so they're clearly absolutely on fire right now.
Yeah, over here too from 6th to 10th. Once again, 78 all the way to 68 points. We'll see Hen, Decyptos, and Putric ahead of things all the way over at 6th place. But once again, things aren't looking as, point gappy in Heat number 3 and Heat number 4 as well, all the way from 1st to 5th. It's looking the closest, I think, out of all the heats we've seen so far in EU, with Flois, Andretta, and Lewis all the way there in 1st place.
And what I'm looking for out of Heat 4 is our week 1 and 2 winners, Kezix, Nate, and 4ZR. After we checked in on them before, they were not in qualification for the top 8. And are they in there now? They are still not in qualification. So after dominating the first 2 weeks, they're currently standing outside of the qualification mark. So tomorrow's a new day, 6 more games, and maybe they're going to be able to bring it back and pull out first. But 6 games starting off our most dominant team so far, not off to a strong start in Heat 4.
Man, and this is what I was kind of touching on before. It's like sometimes that first day just isn't right. Sometimes you have to kind of take a step back and just readjust something, whether that be your mentals, your drop spot, your game plans, or anything. We'll have to see if tomorrow this dominant trio can show up. But guys, that wraps up all things EU here on day number 1 of the heats. If you're looking for more Fortnite action, stick around after the break because we'll be diving into NA East to see the first 6 games on the day. If not, we're back same place tomorrow. So till then, Fortnite fam, we'll see you on the Battle Bus. What is going on, Fortnite fam? Welcome to the Fortnite Champion Series. If you missed out earlier on the action over in EU, well, I'm sad for you. Unless you had a really busy day, in which case I hope your day is better now that you're hanging out with us here. What's up? You look nice today. Guess who's here on the analyst desk with us? We've got Shy Wager, we've got Reese, and in a moment we'll have some games. Guys, the action over in EU was insane. A lot of ups, lots of downs, lots of crazy plays that were made. Can we expect the same in NA East?
Yes, 100%. It felt like in EU, every game was its own event. And that's because the quality of players has been elevated, right? We got the top 15 and then all the people who played so consistently over the entire tournament. And now it's time to put it all on the line.
And Giles, not saying the skill level here isn't elevated also, but the hype is real. These games are going to be equally as good, and I'm excited to get into them.
That's right. And we'll jump in just a second. But first, let's go ahead and talk about the tournament itself. And don't forget, we are here in heats. We just left round 3, and that was the last 3 weeks of competition that we've had. Now, after 2 days of competition, we've got 6 games today and another 6 tomorrow. Here's where things get interesting. Whereas before we watched the top 15 trios move on to heats, now it's only the top 8 that will move on to grand finals. However, if a trio lands in that 9th through 16th place trial, they're going right into the wild card.
Yeah, there's still one more chance, one more game, one more moment, an opportunity to make those grand finals, but you need to win that wild card match. Yes, only the first place Victory Royale gainer will be able to make it to grand finals. Grand finals obviously going to be played over 2 days, 6 games each, so business as usual. And at the end of that, we will have our brand new Trios FNCS champion.
That's right, and now we'll move on along. We've got that 4 match. You know it. It's the 25 points for the Victory Royale. Now, don't forget, there's 33 trios that are playing today. So if a trio can place 17th, they'll get a point for their trouble. Of course, trying to aim as high as possible, and every elimination is worth 1 point. Now, Reese, I mean, you know I like to ask you this question. We kind of see the full spectrum. What do you think NA East is going to bring? You think we're going to see that consistency? You think players are going to try and slay? NA East does start a little slower than we're used to seeing.
They do. These guys are way more focused on their rotations, their positioning, and just, you know, generally having a less aggressive early and mid-game style. So they obviously go for more placement and get these eliminations in the end game. We see players who have really big pop-off moments and have high eliminations in the end game, lots of consistent placements, and not very many Victory Royales, and vice versa. Guys who get tons of Victory Royales like Zaitsaf and Stretch, but don't get as many elims, still up there in the leaderboards.
Today is a brand new day for Fortnite. And don't forget, guys, we're here for the next 4 days of Fortnite. That's right. We got NA East today. We got the heats wrap up tomorrow. And then we're back for grand finals. And here you can see a prize breakdown for NA East specifically. That is the region we are tuning into. So if you want to catch more of the action, don't forget, come back tomorrow, the next day, and the following day. We're here, same time, same place, same good old Fortnite action. Now, of course, there is a few more things we are going to be talking about here in just a moment. The battle bus is being prepared for us. We've got our players loading on board. But gentlemen, this is another region. This is a brand new week. We got to make some predictions. Now, we know Reese has been pretty on point with his predictions, but if you did not see earlier, Sundown actually might be looking to dethrone Reese going into tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. I don't want to get too far ahead of it. We'll see. But we did make some predictions over here at NA East. We had all of our casters basically randomly selected in an order 1 through 4 to make some predictions. We'll see those in a sec. Now, dudes, the teams, the trios, don't forget, we have 4 whole heats going on at the same time. Which are some of the trios we should be looking at coming into this one?
Yeah, we're going to be looking at heat number 2 today, and there's a lot of top teams, and honestly, it's one of the most competitive heats that we have, I think, in the world right now, in terms of what we're looking at region to region. Over here, I believe, is the most top 15s we've ever landed, and here are some of those top teams. For me, I predicted first, it's the X-Set trio, Knight, Shark, and AV. They play low ground, and in this heat, we have a lot of those low ground trios. I feel like they play it the best, they'll end up winning.
All right, now we are going to move on over to Ozzy Antics. Since he is our caster, he can't speak right at the moment, but he's got Day, Nero, and Reverse 2K. I would also lean on this trio a lot. I mean, we've seen these guys show up in so many big ways. Now, again, this is we're going like a stage harder than what we're used to seeing. So I'd be curious to see how they perform today and if they make it to grand finals, what that looks like as well. But Reese, you were up next. So what are your predictions?
I'm going with Scented, Edgy, and Commandment. Ridiculously consistent team. They performed extremely well in qualifier 3. So these guys are hot on it right now. They're building that momentum and they're going to carry that through to heats today. I can feel it.
And speaking of expectations, momentum, and carrying, we have Chap, Coop, and Hoofishy as the pick for Monster D-Face. Hoofishy is one person Monster's really been looking at over in solos and trios as well. Chap and Coop, these guys combined play low ground very well too. So we have Reese with the high ground trio. We got, actually they play low ground too. Honestly, we're in the dirt, we're in the trenches with this heat, right? There's people who really want to control the same space, but there's not enough space overall for these guys to have that control. So it gets intense, Zeke.
Dude, it does. But that's what makes Fortnite so awesome. And of course, these games are going to be some of the highest quality we've seen. Now, we are going to kind of take a look at some of the trios we should be keeping our eyes on, especially for you guys that maybe might not have been tuning in before. Welcome. Happy that you're here to hang out with us. And I hope you're ready for some Fortnite. Gentlemen, break down some of these trios for us.
We shall. Let's actually dive in now. I think all the picks we have so far in the gameplay from them. So starting with Commandment, Scented, and Edgy. These guys played so well overall in the qualifiers that they actually got a chance to perform in. And from there, whether it's low or height, they found victory royales.
You know, their week 1 and week 2 didn't really go as well as they were planned to. Ooh, lovely shot from Edgy there. Weren't going as well as they were hoping to, but like I said, in qualifier 3, they really brought it back and had some huge games and were first on that leaderboard.
Yeah, 2 separate wins that we see from them overall, but a team that actually doesn't win but does a lot of damage, usually when they don't, is Miro, Reverse, and Day from low. What is it, Reese? Like 15 elimination second places, 12 elimination second places, and they were still on top of teams that had 4 total wins.
I believe they had 2 15 elimination games in a row, which is absolutely insane. That must probably be some of the highest runs in NA East or EU that we've seen in terms of 2 elimination games. Maybe Metro, Mongrel, and Tayson were able to cult that at some point because obviously they're known for popping high elimination games, but 2 in a row? I don't think so.
And they can jump high too easily, but then break it back down to make sure their boots are on the ground. That's usually where they like to end up finishing games, taking down Zayt, Saf, and Stretch, who will be in a different heat that we will tune in with. But they just play so well together. Sometimes don't even need communication because they're so synergistic. You talk about synergy, though, you cannot miss out on Xset, AV, Knight, and Shark, who were kind of the pioneers, at least in this season, of this low ground type of gameplay, and they play it out so well.
They were, and you know, AV picking up the big clicks there. Those guys are very impressive on their low ground strategies. Shiles even done a whole video on it for a little break. They're fantastic. These guys stay so far ahead of the zone. They stick to dead side rotates in these end game moving zones. They manage to pick up a ton of eliminations as they do it. And overall, just a really great team to learn from and to watch.
Oh my gosh, this heat is like very stacked. I know we've kind of gone back and forth on us trying to figure out like which heat we're going to watch. And then we settled on heat 2. We're like, that seems like that's going to provide some of those quality games we're looking to watch. Now, of course, guys, we also have some casters on deck that are waiting to cast games. So, of course, we absolutely want you to meet them. We got 2 of the very best in the business. We got Monster D-Face and Aussie Antics. Gentlemen, please say hello to the viewing audience.
Oh, we're going to say more than just hi. We're going to take it back to square one here because it's kicking off. It's the Heats. They're back. Monster Defense, of course, Aussie Antics here. Aussie, I mean, they set the stage for us. It's a low ground war being set up before us. This Heat 2 is going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's an absolute low ground war, and I love the way Shio touched on it there. We have XZ, which are the pioneers, but we've got so many other teams that maybe noticed how well they were doing and just had to make a run for it as well. But can we see if maybe any of these teams adapt? Maybe they've recognized it like we have, and they're all going to start going high ground. I don't know. It's going to be super exciting.
I mean, you take out all the high ground equations, someone's going to play. These guys are going to alpha up. You know they know how to seek opportunity and seize it. The highlight reel showed it. I mean, you saw Miro taking out one of the best, Zayt, Saf, and Stretch all in a string of elims. They have the power locations. That's also going to change things up, right? This entire drop spot. Our focus is going to be in totally different areas of the map.
Yeah, we're gonna have to focus on so many different areas, but that's what's so good about Heat. There's so many teams to root for as well. And still, we have another team. We
Him and Edgy and High Sky.
It's like such a good team, but we have our predictions now. I'm gonna let you run it, Monster. Let's see. Like, they obviously gave you a big shout out for why you picked it. You're a big Who Fishy fan, but Chap Coop Who Fishy, it's a very solid pick.
Yeah, and Chop is like, he ages with time, right? You get later into the competition phases, and I'm telling you, he's going to do better. He's not the kind of player that does very well, performs very well in those open stages. You couple him with Coop, a champion in the solo regards, Who Fishy, one of the hottest rising players. It is a formula for success, and that was why they were my picks. Obviously, leaning into your pick here, though, Ozzy, take the floor.
Yeah, I mean, Day, Miro, and Reverse 2K, we saw how well they could perform last week. And honestly, the reason why I picked them is because we've been talking about this kind of, low ground warfare that we're going to see. It's a team that does know how to take high ground when they need to. And I want to see them pull that out today, identifying that they are one of the stronger teams to go for high ground, especially in this heat with no really massive notable names out of Doom's Domain or Stark Industries. I think without players maybe with as much experience getting that really solid loot, high ground will be much easier to take and hold from a drop like Day, Miro, and Reverse are doing. But it's going to be interesting. We talked about it last week, Monster. They were kind of inhabiting the Fortilla drop that Xset had.
Yes.
They're going to have to leave that now. So how are they going to go out of their old dirty docks, or are they going to go somewhere else completely again?
That's what I was going to say, right? They did so well out of the Fortilla area. They're going to have to switch back up, probably go back to the old trusty, the dirty docks. Or will they pull a big upset? Will they go toe-to-toe with the Titans that run the Fortilla right now? I mean, it's the first time we're going to see Xset and the TNA boys, plus, of course, Reverse 2K, Who Fishy, all of them playing there in the new space, right? So it is going to be a first of sorts, and we'll see how they do as we kind of get into the games here. It's a 2-day format, right? 6 games today, 6 games tomorrow. Let's talk about how that shapes up the competition.
Well, like you said, I mean, I love the way you phrase that with Chap aging as it goes on. I honestly thought that was a bit of a boomer joke there. He is one of the oldest pros, but you're right. He does. He honestly adapts to metas better than anyone else, and that's why he stayed so relevant for such a long time. Chap has been around since the beginning of competitive Fortnite, and he's always been so dominant. I don't want to get the stat wrong, but I believe he's one of 3 players that's managed to get a top 6 in every single team mode FNCS Grand Finals. So the only other 2 players being Zayt and Saf, who do it together. So Chap's the only player who can consistently pick up new teams, adapt to new metas, and still perform. So in a 12-game format, it only gives him more time to do that.
And we have some other fun teams in here, right? We have other veterans like Ronaldo, right? Zelman Skittles. They managed to get together. We know that originally Ronaldo qualified through with Sway. So all of a sudden, his second team, his second trio he found, he decided to stick with them. That's a fun story too.
It's a super fun story as well, and he even won Squad's FNCS, so he has now been one of the most dominant players in NA East in the last format that's kind of the close. I know it's not trios, it's squads, but still very, very similar. Big teams managing to lead players. He had Unknown on his team. Zum's obviously a ridiculously good player, similar kind of style as Unknown, super aggressive, so we'll have to see how they go, and I think Skittles definitely is one of the most underrated players right now in NA East.
And talking about underrated players, that leads me into Aspect, Zunies, and NPen, Kings of the Ruin. That's center map control, which in this heat here specifically, when you look at all the other heats, right, you talk about the superstars, the standout candidates, the drop spots that are going to be scary to drop and land at. The center of the map is also being controlled by a big powerhouse team here in Heat 2. So there's a lot of dynamic going on here. There's obviously the battles of these major POIs on the outskirts. There's the clear, elephant in the room, which is the Doom's Domain, the Stark Industries. But then you have these people that play the ruins probably better than anyone else in all of the Heat's aspect, Zunies here in NPen. So that also brings a new dynamic to this game. I feel like the Heat 2 specifically is very well-rounded top to bottom when it comes down to teams to root for, but to look out for too.
Yeah, definitely. At the same time, we're going to have to see how a team's been doing it really well from an edge map drop, though, because we have Shio's package on Xset that's kind of going to break down how good this team is at playing their end games, but their mid game is where they really set it up.
We've all seen it before. Maximum height, final zone, and a victory royale. 3 things that go hand in hand in every Fortnite endgame. But what if I told you there was a different way you can make every final zone, get elims, and not be on height while winning the game? Let's take a look at the X-Set trio and how they use low ground in NA East Day 2, Game 1 to beat height, win out the match, and finesse the endgame. You've got AV, one of the best shot callers and solo clutch players of NA East, combined with Shark and Knight, a duo that's played together for over a year, having some of the most top consistent placements in FNCS duos and enough synergy to the point where it looks like they can read each other's minds. To get enough fuel to be able to make it into endgames, these guys land over at the Fortilla and Shantytown and Logjam Woodworks. That's right, a huge split taking over 15% of the map with a total of 40 chests. Let's take a look at this comparison between mid-ground and low ground. While on mid-ground, you're usually at risk of being shot by 3 angles at all times. There are multiple trios on your lair that can shoot your walls and battle for space in front of you, as well as try to break into your box behind you. If your base or tarp is too high and exposed, you can risk being pressured from height with shots, utility, and surprise all-ins. And while you're trying to keep track of all of that, there can be low ground trios that are looking to shockwave up, crash pad you down, as well as spray your floors, making a fully built metal box still vulnerable to anyone on the lookout. The X-Set trio always choosing to stay on low ground changes all of that. With the ground beneath them, there's no pressure at all coming from beneath their feet. They can spend more time looking around and above at other trios, becoming more aware of threats and dangerous paths. In terms of other low ground players on their lair, the main fight is for space and position. So they end up moving instead of shooting first, giving X-Set more time to make decisions while on the run. The mid-ground trios above X-Set can get their sightlines blocked by each other, and X-Set can utilize old builds like you see here to get even more sneaky and secluded, making there no chance of any pressure at all, giving these guys an easy route towards the front of the zone. Skip a little bit ahead, and this is where the magic starts. Having a hill on their backs, zone ahead of them, and their own builds behind them, it lets X-Set focus just on one angle, and a player on the other side of that angle gets pressured so much that he's forced up, giving X-Set more room to even cover on low ground. Seeing that it's a steep incline though, they build up a layer, forcing any teams rotating on their side of the circle to funnel straight into their floors, cones, and edits. They set up a perfect trap in their home turf, gain 3 points, drop back down to low ground for weapon upgrades, mats, and more. That final zone is the biggest issue for low ground though, as height can beam down and make X-Set use up all their mats. For this entire time, they've been playing box to box, close to the ground, allowing them to save their utility till the 9th zone, and using it as a counter to height. They deal damage and really split apart the focus of Fizzle, Illis, and Clicks, with the huge reservoir of shockwaves that they have set up. X-Set just have to look up and spray, having an easier time keeping up with the zone, as they don't have to build floors to stay inside it. Both weapons can also just stay activated, and they flip the pressure onto the height trio, eventually winning the game. Low ground lets you stay together more, focus on one team at a time, saves your utility, and when